time, but he became kind of a teen idol there for a little while, didn't he?
Yeah, and then he had a really big hit show after that called Jericho. That was big time on like CBS. So yeah, he became kind of like a household name. Good looking, dark haired, slim guy with a good athletic build on him, and he sort of was what embodied 1990s teen heartthrob. Like the 80s teen heartthrobs were different than the 90s. The 80s you had people like Corey Feldman and Corey Haim and some of those others. Jennifer, what's her name? The one that married, I can't remember her. Jennifer Grey. We had all the certain look, and in the 90s it was the same. But you said it. We'll get into that later on how much 90s is actually in this movie.
Yeah, so we've already got a couple of 90s things. We've got the tube TV, we've got the cordless telephone, and we've got those videotapes, and which she probably rented, and her boyfriend's coming over. I think that's it so far. But when you see Sidney Prescott typing on the computer, you can tell it's old as shit. It's definitely not one of these computers now. So anyway, like I said, Billy Loomis pops up through the window, and he kind of sneaks in there, and basically he tries to fuck her, and she's like, "Nope, I ain't having none of that shit right now." And you kind of get a weird vibe about her. And during this whole scene, like you're getting some, like he said that he was watching Exorcist, and that they cut out all the good parts on TV, and it's kind of like their relationship. And during this whole scene, like they're playing Don't Fear the Reaper, but it's slowed down. It's kind of a cool version of it. Another Halloween reference there.
Yeah, very true. I mean, and then it's taking place at it's at night, which is another big thing for a lot of the slashers. They usually start in the evening, like that, and it just it's so many tropes were already like addressed, and we're not even 10 minutes and 10 or 15 minutes into the movie yet,
Yeah, we've even got a virgin. We've got all that stuff, so it's setting up as that she's going to be the survivor girl as long as she doesn't have sex, right? Well,
and we got the '90s band. Did you look at the Creed poster on the wall? I mean, even and pop culture, just like and the Indigo Girls, and some of the other stuff, and the soundtrack. I'm not even gonna. We'll get into that later because I kind of have a connection because of being a musician. The soundtrack. This movie is got fucking 1996 written all over it. I mean, you could definitely.
I listened to the soundtrack the other day, as a matter of fact, and it was still pretty awesome.
It's very awesome. Yeah.
Her dad, Neil Prescott, tries to come into the room, and like she's got this weird door system where like one door blocks the other door. Anyway, he tries to get in there, and he's telling her, I'm going out of town. Billy hides during this, that he's going out of town. There's money and all that good shit for you, to buy food or whatever you need. I'll be back. I'll be at the airport Hilton. Anyway, so what we find out is that Sidney's mom, Maureen, like you said earlier, was actually killed 1 year before, almost a year to the date. And Sidney and her father are kind of all alone now. And what we also find out is that Sidney's testimony identified Cotton Weary, played by Leif Schreiber, as the killer, although Cotton swears he's innocent, which that's something that it's briefly touched on in this movie. It's not heavily pushed to us. We don't see much of Cotton in this movie. You're going to get more of him in the next movie. But yeah, I mean, so basically we got a little backstory unfolding here. And then, the next day, she gets there, Sidney gets there to school, and it is fucking... Vic, have you ever seen a scene like this? I mean, you had people who, like, I know you knew, they got in trouble at school, things happen. Have you ever seen anything like this with the media and, the cop coverage like this? Vic, God damn it. All right. What about you, Blake?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was a couple of years after this, but the Columbine thing had press coverage like that.
Yep. Actually, no, it wasn't. No, you're right. It was after this. There was another incident that happened in Santa Rosa that we'll get into later that was right before this, and it fucked up their filming for it. But anyway, so the next day, Sydney School, like I said, it's a buzz. Everybody's fucking finding out about this murder, and because Casey and Steve actually went to school there. And, like I said, they're the ones that are killed at the start. So Sydney, you get a lot of character development during all this, like where you find out about Tatum, who's Rose McGowan, who looked pretty fucking good in this movie. You got Billy, like I said, and then you got Randy, Jamie Kennedy, who's the one that's obsessed with horror movies. And then you got Stu, Matthew Lillard. So these people are all friends, and they're kind of hanging out at the fountain talking about what happens. And you find out that, like, Stu used to date Casey Becker, and he's dating Tatum now. And they're just kind of rapping about the whole thing. I don't know how to explain it any other way. You know, they're talking about, you know, who could have done it. Like, Stu is like, it had to have been a man to do it because they're completely disemboweled, gutted. And, you know, you can tell Sydney's getting uncomfortable as hell about it, right?
Yeah, and
she just weirded out.
Yeah, she's weirded out.
Because of the thing with her mom.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, and my favorite part was when Randy does that thing. He's aping and mocking Stu because he says it takes a man to do something like that. And he's like, because it takes a man to do something like that. You know, he's fucking aping him and like pissing him off, and it was great. And
not to skip this over, like when Sydney first gets to school, you know, she says that she's talking to Tatum, and Tatum says that Casey and Steve were killed, and Sydney's like, Casey sits next to me in whatever class, and she's like,
English
not
class.
anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that. And he's like, fucking Randy says to Stu, he's like, did you put her liver in the mailbox? Because I heard they found her liver in the mailbox next to her pancreas and her spleen. And then the best part to me is where Stu says, liver alone. Get it? Liver. I don't know why that makes me laugh every time.
And what makes me laugh is not even, I mean, that makes me laugh a lot, but Billy's response being the brooding 1990s teenager, he's like, when she says, Sydney says, how do you gut someone? And then Stu goes to explain it, and then Billy's like trying to dismiss it. He's like, it's called tact, you fuck rag. You know, that's like definitely a 1990s slang, you know, term. Fuck rag was definitely 1990s.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think that we find out here is how good the fucking cast is and how well suited to their roles are. Which, I don't talk too much about acting in these movies, but they all play their role perfect, and they're fucking perfect for their role. But anyway, so Sydney's going to go home that night and wait for Tatum to pick her up, and because she don't want to be alone. So she's either going to stay with Tatum for the weekend or Tatum's going to stay with her. And, you know, the phone rings, and, of course, she hears the same voice that Casey heard earlier. And we're kind of hoping that it's not that same person. But it was, obviously. And at first she thinks it's Randy joking around because Randy loves horror movies. And he's like, are you alone in the house? And she's like, Randy, that's way too easy. And he's like, maybe that's because I'm not Randy. And that's when shit gets serious, right?
Yeah, doesn't Tatum call first though when they talk about she's gonna stop by the video store?
Yeah, she's like, pick up all the right moves. If you pause it just right, you can see his penis. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you whores, or at least Tatum's a whore. Anyway, so let's see. They're on the phone, and this dude, just like with Casey, it kind of starts out where it's not so threatening, and then he's like, if you hang up now, you're going to die like your mother. You want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't. And I'm like, oh, fuck, this scary motherfucker. Ghostface ain't fucking around. He is an asshole. So, by the way, you know the interesting thing? When she got home from, I guess, I don't know if it was the bus or what, whenever she first got home, she checked her mailbox, which made me laugh because it's like she was looking for a liver. You know what I'm saying? The first thing she does is check her mailbox after that whole comment. I don't know. Maybe she's looking for a liver or a spleen or a pancreas. Anyway, I guess they have to live her alone. But so...
Aww.
So, she's like fucking with the killer now. She's like, she had been fucking with the killer, like basically not sure if he was really there, but now he's saying that he can see her, and she's getting pissed off now, And then finally, this fucker breaks out of her closet and comes chasing after her. And this is where we find, like, we kind of noticed this when he was after Casey. And in this next scene, like, where he's after Sydney, we noticed that Ghostface is kind of a bumbling goof, isn't he? Like, he fucking runs into walls and shit. I guess it's that costume. I don't know. But he is fucking not agile at all.
Well, yeah, the costume has those little tail things on the end of it that are real low to the ground. So yeah, I think he was tripping over that stuff.
It's kind of funny to watch him miss so many times and like run into walls and shit, because that's not what we're used to from killers. I mean, think about it. We had Freddy, who was a killer in the Nightmares. I mean, he could have done whatever he wanted. You had Michael and Jason, who were most of the time the slow walkers, and then you had like Chucky, which was a fucking doll. So leading up to all of this, we didn't have this type of killer yet, really, where he's like, I mean, it's a person in a costume who's just, I don't know, struggling like anybody else would. So anyway, she locks herself in a room, calls 911 from her phone or from her computer because the phone's dead. And then Billy pops up through the window, and it's like, what the fuck's he doing there again? And, you know, they kind of hug, and then Billy drops his cell phone, and she realizes, oh, shit, he was the one calling me, or at least that's what she thinks at this point. You know, and she runs downstairs out of the house, and it's pretty awesome when she opens the door. The Ghostface mask is, like, right in her face, and she screams, and Dewey screams because he's holding it at the door. He's like, I found this. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah,
so
he was great, and you know, Dewey he was kind of like a bumbling goof too, which we'll get into later. But I think that speaks to red herrings and who ends up really being the killer, which we'll get into that. But you know,
yeah, he was originally interviewed or auditioning for the Billy Loomis part, but he decided he liked this part, and it worked out pretty damn well, I have to say. So Billy gets arrested, and, you know, Sidney's taken to the police station along with him, and, you know, he's being questioned, and this part's kind of fucked up, all right, because, like, okay, first of all, it makes me laugh, because the sheriff's like, what were you doing at Sidney's house? And he's like, I felt like going for a drive. He's like, and last night? He's like, look, and his dad is sitting next to him. He's like, you went out last night? He's like, look, I just wanted to get some air. I wanted to see my girlfriend. And he's like, happened to go by Casey Becker's house? Yep, sure did. Can you imagine if he's like, yep, sure did. You got me. But the sheriff questioning him makes me laugh, because the next part he says, let me ask you a question, son. What are you doing with a cellular phone or cellular telephone? And it's like, can you imagine that now? This is another part where it shows you, you know, this is 1996, not now. He's asking him about a cellular telephone. Everybody has cell phones now. 1996, they were more known as car phones, weren't they?
Car phones were a little bit of a separate thing, but the same kind of technology. He had actually one that I had, one of those old Nokia bricks. Those things could survive being thrown in the toilet. You drop an iPhone or an Android, you're fucked. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Let me ask you a question, son. What are you doing with a cellular telephone? That's fucking great. So anyway, they're going to hold him until they get the phone records back to find out if it really was Billy calling. So at the police station, you got Sidney, who meets, you know, with Dewey, who is David Arquette again. That's Tatum's older brother, and he's the town's deputy, who's just a goof. And then outside the police station, you've got Gail Weathers, who's Courtney Cox, kind of playing outside her nice girl role from Friends. And, you know, she had written this expose about the murder of Sidney's mom, and she like sneaks around back where they're trying to get Sidney out of the police station and over to Tatum's house for the night. And, you know, this is where she kind of gets into an argument with Sidney, because she's just trying to get, like, an exclusive interview with her after, you know, she was almost killed. And, you know, she tells her that Cotton Weary was wrongfully convicted. And basically, Sidney hates Gail because Gail basically called her mom a whore in the book. And the Cotton Weary, you know, he had sex with her, but he didn't kill her or rape her. And, So, she thinks the murders are connected, and this is when Sid fucking